Welcome. If you are watching this, you are likely a seasoned quality professional. You understand the language of ISO 9001. You know how to build a quality management system, or QMS, that drives efficiency, ensures consistency, and satisfies customers. Your skills are valuable and proven. You have built your career on the principles of continuous improvement, process control, evidence-based decision-making. You are comfortable with audits, you understand non-conformities, and you know what it takes to achieve and maintain certification. Your expertise has been a cornerstone of business success, helping your organization deliver reliable products and services time and time again. But now, you stand at a professional crossroads. You are entering a new world: medical devices, pharmaceuticals. This is a domain where the stakes are fundamentally higher. Here, the end user is not just a customer, they are a patient. The products you oversee are not just for convenience or performance. They are for diagnosing, treating, and sustaining life. This transition requires more than just learning a new standard. It demands a profound mindset shift. The robust foundation you built with ISO 9001 is essential, but it is no longer sufficient on its own. It is the starting point, not the destination. This program is designed specifically for you. It is a 60-minute intensive training course built to bridge the gap between your existing expertise and the rigorous demands of the medtech and pharmaceutical sectors. We will not waste time on the basics of quality management. We will assume you already possess that knowledge. Instead, we will focus directly on the critical differences, heightened expectations, regulatory frameworks that define this industry. We will translate what you know into what you need to know to be effective, compliant, and audit-ready from day one. Your journey to becoming a regulatory quality expert starts now. In the world of ISO 9001, the ultimate goal is clearly defined: customer satisfaction. Every process, every procedure, every metric is geared towards meeting or exceeding customer expectations. A non-conformity might lead to a returned product, a warranty claim, or a negative online review. The consequences are primarily commercial. You work to prevent these outcomes because they impact brand reputation, repeat business, profitability. Now, you must fundamentally recalibrate that focus. In the medical device and pharmaceutical industries, the primary directive is not customer satisfaction, it is patient safety. This is the single most important mindset shift you will make. While a satisfied clinician or hospital is certainly desirable, it is secondary to the absolute imperative of ensuring the device or drug does no harm. A failure can lead to misdiagnosis, ineffective treatment, serious injury, or even death. The consequences are not just commercial. They are clinical and deeply human. This changes everything. As an ISO 9001 professional, you are very familiar with the concept of risk-based thinking. Clause 6.1 requires organizations to determine risks and opportunities. In this context, risk is often interpreted as business risk. However, in the medical device world, risk has a much more specific, grave meaning. ISO 14971, Application of Risk Management to Medical Devices. Here, risk is focused on clinical risk, the patient. The key question becomes, what could go wrong with our device that might harm someone? Vocabulary: hazard, hazardous situation, harm. A hazard is a potential source of harm, for example, a sharp edge on a device. Your job is to lead a process that identifies all foreseeable hazards. Estimate the associated risks of harm. Evaluate whether those risks are acceptable. Implement controls to reduce them to the lowest possible level. This formal documented process is known as risk management. It is the absolute backbone of your medical device QMS. That file provides objective evidence you prioritized patient safety above all else. Regulators will scrutinize this file heavily. A weak risk management process leads to failed audits and market rejection. As we transition from the general principles of quality to the specifics of regulatory compliance, we must first understand the landscape. Unlike ISO 9001, which is a voluntary standard, the medical device world is governed by law. These laws are created and enforced by government agencies known as competent authorities or regulators. Their primary mission is to protect public health by ensuring that medical devices placed on their market are safe and perform as intended. In the United States, the primary regulator is the Food and Drug Administration. In the European Union, regulations are set at the EU level, but enforced by competent authorities in each member state, like Germany's Pharma. Each of these organizations has the legal authority to grant, suspend, or revoke your permission to sell a device. To manage this, regulators universally employ a system of risk classification. The higher the risk class, the more stringent the regulatory scrutiny. As a quality professional, your role is to understand which regulations apply, and to embed those requirements directly into your quality management system. ISO 13485 certification is merely the beginning of the journey. It is your essential entry ticket. It is the price of admission to even be considered for market access. Without an ISO 13485 certificate, most regulators will not even look at your product submission. The standard itself explicitly states its intent in its name. It is designed to help organizations meet regulatory requirements. Unlike ISO 9001, ISO 13485 is laser-focused on safety, performance, meeting legal obligations. Many national regulations are harmonized with ISO 13485, including Europe, Canada, Australia. However, and this is critical, certification alone does not grant permission to sell your device. The certificate is issued by a certification body. Market approval is granted by a regulatory authority. The regulator is interested in far more than just your QMS. They will conduct a detailed review of your specific device, including its design, the materials used, the clinical evidence. Therefore, don't see ISO 13485 as a standalone objective. See it as the engine of your regulatory effort. It generates the evidence that populates your product submission files. The certificate gets you in the door. The evidence you've generated gets your product through it. The European Union has been replaced by two new, more stringent regulations: the Medical Device Regulation and the In Vitro Diagnostic Regulation. A key change introduced by these regulations is a much stronger emphasis on a life cycle approach. They demand continuous evaluation of the device's safety and performance. For any device above the lowest risk class, you must be audited by a designated third-party organization called a notified body. In the United States, the FDA has finalized a new rule to largely replace the current QSR, with a new regulation that incorporates ISO 13485 by reference, the Quality Management System Regulation, or QMSR. The FDA will continue to conduct its notoriously thorough inspections, but they will be auditing against a system based on ISO 13485. In many regulatory systems, you will encounter a critical entity known as a notified body. The government outsources the detailed technical audits to these expert commercial organizations. Under the new EU regulations, notified bodies are required to conduct unannounced audits. This makes a culture of constant audit readiness absolutely essential. Many quality professionals will encounter products that bridge the gap between devices and pharmaceuticals. In these scenarios, be aware of good manufacturing practice, or GMP. To bring all these regulatory pieces together, it is helpful to visualize the product journey as a life cycle funnel. This demonstrates that regulatory compliance is not a one-time event, but a continuous cycle. As an experienced ISO 9001 professional, opening the ISO 13485 standard will feel like coming home at first. The structure, the clause titles, and much of the terminology will be instantly recognizable. However, this familiarity can also be a trap. The greatest challenge is not in learning new concepts, but in unlearning the old interpretations of familiar ones. The standard's full title is the key. Every clause must be read through the lens of regulatory compliance and patient safety. In this act, we will perform a clause-by-clause mapping, focusing on the practical implications of the changes. Clause 4.1.1 requires the organization to document a QMS in accordance with applicable regulatory requirements. This phrase appears over 50 times. More importantly, Clause 4.2.2 introduces the requirement for a medical device file if you use software for any part of your quality system. Clause 4.1.6 requires you to validate its use. This is a formal process. Clause 5, management responsibility transforms commitment into legal accountability. A key difference is the formality of the management review process. Clause 6.4, work environment and contamination control, is a major addition. If a device needs to be sterile, you must document requirements for controlling contamination. Clause 7.1, planning of product realization, is far more prescriptive and serves as a master plan for the entire product lifecycle. Clause 7.3, design and development, is the rigid, non-negotiable heart of the standard. It provides the prescriptive, phased framework. The concepts of design and development verification and validation are given much sharper definitions. Clause 7.5 governs production. The standard places heavy emphasis on process validation and traceability. Clause 8.2.2, complaint handling, is a mandatory documented procedure. Every complaint must be evaluated to see if it's an adverse event and must be reported to regulatory authorities. If ISO 13485 is the skeleton of your quality system, then ISO 13971 is its central nervous system and backbone. It is the active, thinking part of your QMS that anticipates what could go wrong and systematically works to prevent patient harm. Your ability to demonstrate a robust and compliant risk management process is a direct prerequisite for gaining and maintaining market approval. Every successful journey begins with a map. In the world of ISO 13971, that map is the risk management plan. The first active step begins with hazard identification, a systematic and comprehensive effort to identify all potential sources of harm. ISO 13971 requires identifying hazards during normal use and during foreseeable misuse. Ignoring foreseeable misuse is a common and serious failure. Once you have a comprehensive list of harms, estimate the risk for each. Risk is the combination of probability and severity of harm. For each risk, compare it against the risk acceptability criteria. Is this risk acceptable, or does it require reduction? ISO 13971 is prescriptive about the order of preference. This is known as the hierarchy of risk control. The first and most preferred option is to design for inherent safety, eliminating the hazard by changing the design of the device itself. If inherent safety is not practicable, the second option is to implement protective measures, adding guards, incorporating alarms. The third and least preferred option is to provide information for safety, adding warnings to the device labeling. After you have implemented risk control measures, reevaluate the risks to determine the level of residual risk. Even if all individual residual risks are acceptable, perform a formal benefit risk analysis. Explicitly weigh the overall residual risk against the medical benefits. The risk management file is a living document. As you gather post-production information, that information must be periodically reviewed. An auditor must be able to pick any single element and trace its connections forward and backward through your documentation. This is the golden thread. When a notified body assessor or an FDA inspector sits down to review your product, they are conducting a deep forensic examination of the objective evidence. This act will focus on two intertwined topics: the design controls process used to generate the evidence and the technical documentation where that evidence is presented. They are looking for a clear, logical, and compelling story. They want to see a golden thread of traceability. They do not want to hunt for information or piece together a confusing puzzle. A confusing or incomplete submission is often rejected. Every medical device begins with a statement of purpose. You must meticulously define and document the device's intended purpose or intended use. From the intended purpose, you then derive the user needs. The next formal step is to translate them into design and development inputs. As engineering teams work, they generate a vast amount of documentation. These documents are the design and development outputs. Design verification, answers. Did we build the device right? Design validation, answers. Did we build the right device? The next critical step is design and development transfer. The formal documented handover that ensures your validated design can be reliably produced. Every single modification must be managed through a formal design and development change control process. A typical technical file is organized into several key sections. Two critical sections follow: Risk Management File, ISO 13971, and Verification and Validation Evidence. V&V includes protocols and reports from testing, bench testing, biocompatibility, electrical safety, software validation, usability testing. The file must also contain clinical safety and performance evidence. For medical devices under EU MDR, Clinical Evaluation Report. For IVDs under IVDR, Performance Evaluation Report. For manufacturers looking to place a device on the European market, your technical documentation must provide a detailed roadmap showing how your device meets every single applicable general safety and performance requirement. The GSPR checklist is one of the very first things a notified body reviewer will examine. It serves as their index to your technical file. In the world of medical devices, the product launch is not the finish line. It is merely the starting line for a new, equally critical phase: the era of continuous surveillance. Your permission to sell the device is contingent upon your ability to continuously monitor its safety and performance in the real world. Your PMS system must be planned and documented. The EU MDR requires a formal post-market surveillance plan as part of your technical documentation. This is not just about complaint handling. It includes gathering data from feedback from users, service reports, scientific literature, and other post-market studies. For higher-risk devices, the regulations often require a more active form of surveillance called post-market clinical follow-up, PMCF. The data gathered through your PMS system must be periodically analyzed, and the results must be documented in a post-market surveillance report. When a complaint is received, it must be evaluated to determine if it meets the criteria for a reportable event. This is the vigilance or medical device reporting process. Every complaint, whether it is reportable or not, must be investigated to determine its root cause, often using your CAPA system. There is another critical dimension to change management, determining when a change is significant enough that it requires you to notify your notified body. Your QMS must include a procedure for making this critical assessment. It must clearly state whether the change is considered substantial and requires external notification. The culmination of all your efforts is tested in the audit. As a quality professional, you will face several different types of audits. The three main types you will encounter are ISO 13485 certification audits, notified body assessments, and regulatory inspections. A notified body assessment is a much more comprehensive audit. It will also include a deep dive into the technical documentation for your specific device. Finally, there are regulatory inspections, such as those conducted by the FDA. Their inspections are notoriously thorough and can last for many days. The secret to confidently facing any audit is to learn to think like an auditor. They operate on a simple principle. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. They are trained to follow trails of evidence. They will select a sample and follow its threads throughout your entire QMS. Provide your staff with training on how to answer an auditor's questions. Answer only the question asked. Be truthful, and if you don't know the answer, say so. To prepare, you must conduct rigorous internal audits using this same follow-the-thread methodology. Challenge your own systems. When you can provide that unbreakable chain, you are not just ready for an audit. You are in control of your quality system. Our journey over the last 60 minutes has been a rapid and intensive transition, from the familiar landscape of ISO 9001 into the demanding, high-stakes world of medical device and pharmaceutical regulation. The most critical shift: recalibrate your focus from customer satisfaction to unwavering patient safety. As we synthesize the core lessons from our training, 4 foundational pillars of compliance emerge. To help you translate this training into immediate, tangible progress, we have developed a prioritized 90-day transition checklist. Mastering the inspector mindset, a state of constant readiness, the indispensable role of traceability, your ultimate defense. Beyond certification, quality as a guardian of public health. Your journey as a guardian of patient safety has truly begun. If you're transitioning into medical devices or pharma and want real-world regulatory clarity, USQC helps professionals and organizations build compliance systems that actually work.